Hey, welcome to the X Podcast. We're excited to have you with us. And once again, I've got my co-host, Russ Moore, with the greatest last name ever.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. What is that? Are we doing cheers? What are we doing now? Cheers? Okay. Cheers. My water and your coffee. Is that what's in there?
Yeah, it's gone.
I thought it was an Irish Bailey's cream.
Irish coffee.
Oh, I thought it was Irish coffee.
Are known for their Irish coffee.
Okay.
They're
well,
very big about it.
Let's hear all about it. So,
okay,
this is what I wanted to do today for an episode. We're recording kind of a couple of them back to back, and I wanted to have an episode where we could talk about your trip, because you were telling me some things about your trip, and I was like, some of this is very fascinating. But you just got back from a 30-day trip to Ireland.
30-day trip.
Sorry, I take it back. You got back from 4 days of debauchery in Vegas. And you told me that you only spent 2 of those days in prison.
Yeah.
They let you out, 2 in jail.
Yeah, 2 in jail.
So you went to Vegas for 4 days to celebrate magic and 90s rock. 80s rock?
Not 90s.
90s punk rock. 2000 punk rock.
Yes.
Green Day.
Green Day was not there. They'll be there next year.
Okay. So let's take a little journey on your whirlwind. Okay. You went to Vegas first.
Okay. So to set it up, in January, for those that, I don't know, are on Instagram, I probably most people followed it. There was something called When We Were Young that became a phenomenon, at least in branding. And it's called the When We Were Young, and it is a punk rock festival featuring, 2000s. We're talking, some people will know what I'm talking about, My Chemical Romance.
Okay, yeah.
New Found Glory, Boys Like Girls, We the Kings, Starting Line. Yeah, all of these infamous punk rock bands.
Boys Like Girls, I don't.
Some of which were touring, some of which haven't toured in 5 to 10 years, and they all descended. And so some of my best friends from down south were like, we have got to get on the countdown to get these tickets. This is a once in a lifetime event.
Okay.
And it's in Vegas. And so we were on the phone. I still remember I was in Chillicothe. We waited while we're on the phone. When it hit 0, we press click. Well, the problem is this thing went viral internationally and sold out instantly. They ended up adding 2 more days that weekend and then a whole nother weekend, which all sold out instantly. Wow. My friends never got tickets. It never even came through. Mine, a week later, I got word had come for the last day of the final weekend. That's how much it sold out. And we're talking about tens of thousands of people.
It's like Taylor Swift breaking Ticketmaster.
It really was like that, honestly. Part of us, we were kind of concerned this was going to be like the Fire Festival, and it was a scam. There was a lot of concern. But anyways,
it happened.
I had spent an ungodly amount of money on these tickets. I will not disclose how much.
I will tell you.
No,
I won't.
And part of me is like, you know what? They're non-refundable.
You sold your car to buy it.
No, I did
That's
not
what you
sell
told
my
me.
car to buy it.
Oh.
You were being rushed right now. But non-refundable, festival of a lifetime. Although now it's not of a lifetime because it went so well. They're doing it again next.
Are they really?
Yeah. In fact, they're doing an Emo's Not Dead cruise.
Are they?
Right
they
now.
did it. They're doing it. I saw. I know.
Yeah.
Matt Cutshell.
He's amazing. He's so funny.
I didn't know he had actually performed.
So he was there.
I know.
He was kind of helping lead the way on.
And he performed.
He performed on the cruise. He did not actually end up performing at the festival.
Oh.
At least not the one I was at.
Okay. That's different.
So anyways, I was like, well, okay, I already have these tickets. It would have been more fun with friends, but I've not been to Vegas since I was in middle school.
Really?
So I might as well plan it. And
I went to Vegas this summer.
So fun. I was probably the only person, not that there's anything wrong with doing this, I just ended up not. I was the only person that was in Vegas for 4 days, didn't play a single slot machine or have a single drink. I was probably the only person in Vegas for 4 days that didn't do any of that stuff, but it was amazing.
You righteous man.
I'm not saying that
you
righteous.
Holy God. No, I know.
Yeah, because, I
don't like slot machines, but maybe blackjack.
Yeah, but part of it was, I really invested, since I was going to be there 3 or 4 days, I invested in some things that really interested me.
Yeah.
So I'm in Vegas. It is the entertainment capital of the world. And let me just say this. For all of the debauchery and craziness and at times sleaziness of, the reputation of Vegas, the actual Strip itself is
it's not bad at all.
incredibly beautiful.
It is.
It's sparkling. It's because it's the entertainment capital of the world. It is pristine. It's brand new. The lights, the buzz, the energy.
They've cleaned up a lot.
And it's tropical. I mean, it's only 2 hours from L.A. It is West Coast-ish.
It's not 2 hours from LA. It's about 5 hours. I've made the drive. It's about 5 hours.
Oh, it's 2 hours from Death Valley.
Yeah, it's 5 hours. We did that.
4 hours. It's 4 hours.
4 to 5. We did it one year. We rented a car from Vegas and we drove to LA and we stayed overnight.
And a lot of people do
on the beach.
So the point is, like, it is beautiful. It's tropical, but it is dazzling.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of my favorite times was just walking the strip.
I love it.
It's insane. And so really, I kind of, I took it a little bit easy during the day. I found my favorite coffee shop. This would not interest some people. And I worked and kind of just relaxed a little bit during the day because at night I had spent money on some things I was really excited about.
Yeah.
So nerdy side of me, I love the wonder of professional magic. I love magicians. So the first night I went to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant and then straight to
that was magic.
No, but that I was excited about, and then straight to see David Copperfield.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was a dream. The next night I went to the pizza place that you recommended.
Well, it wasn't that one, but how was it?
They said it was 9% the same.
It was?
They said it was 9% the same.
Was it good?
It was pretty good.
It wasn't.
I didn't think it was amazing.
It wasn't?
pretty good, but it wasn't bad. And then I went and saw David Blaine, which is so interesting. David Blaine, David Copperfield show were like night and day. They're so different, but amazing in their own ways. And then the next day was the Punk Rock Festival. Sun up to sundown. I mean, this is 4 stages, 100 bands from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m.
Talk about audio fatigue.
I mean, it was, I will say, I left an hour early. I was just like, okay. But it was incredible. And the next day I went to City Lights Vegas, Jamin Chavez, incredible church there in the city. And then flew, I thought I was going straight from Atlanta to Ireland, but flew to Atlanta, had a day and a half. Met my dad on Tuesday, and then flew to Ireland.
Okay. So all of that just to get to Ireland.
All that just to get to Ireland.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Ireland, kind of like Iceland.
Pretty boring.
Yeah. Was a little bit
ugly.
More my dad's bucket list than mine. I was looking forward to it. I've always wanted to go to Ireland, Scotland, whatever. But Ireland exceeded all my expectations. It was one of the most beautiful countries, one of the richest cultures, one of the most it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
It honestly, there's a part of me, and we've discussed this before, it's a slight difference of me and my dad. I love the scenic beauty of mountains, but I like a combination. In a perfect world, there's a little bit more of urban delight. There's a little bit more of cosmopolitan, seeing some of the biggest cities in the world and experiencing that. And there's just not a ton of that in Ireland. I mean, Dublin is big in its own right-ish.
Well, I've been to Dublin. It's only about 30 minutes from here.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Dublin, Ireland.
Oh, not Dublin.
And then
Dublin.
Belfast. We like Belfast, but Ireland. I knew this.
Yeah.
It's not really known for that, but honestly, the culture and everything more than made up.
See,
It's one of those places I would go back to in a heartbeat.
Really,
I want to explore more of it. And I was telling you, it's I think one of the reasons you want to have this conversation. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
There is so much to Irish culture. They are, first off, some of the most unforgettable characters. The people of Ireland. I mean, you see them portrayed in the movies. You have the famous accents, but they are a.
How did it go? Give us an accent.
I'm so bad at accents. Can I be honest? I am so bad at accents.
Yeah, but you heard it, so what is it?
All right, we're going to. No, that sounds like a pirate.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't do it. But and some of them were richer than others.
Oh,
but
so good.
But like, for instance, so we had 2 different tour guides, and one of these guys, I mean, he was like kind of one of the rough and tumble kind of characters. He was kind of a potty mouth, but he was hilarious, and he was no holds bar. And his first words were, "If you're a minute late, I'm gonna leave your behind. So just make sure you're never late." And I mean, he just like,
I heard your accent starting to break out a little bit, and then I feel like you.
Yeah, I can't.
I heard a little bit.
But they're witty, they're hilarious, they're dry. But then our other tour guide, he was a little bit more subdued. Tall, lanky man with a mustache. He looked like he would play a detective in some London movie, and he was just very dry,
the Pink Panther,
but hilarious. He looked kind of like that, but hilarious. His name was, oh my gosh, what was it? Henry, and just unforgettable people. But they're
beautiful landscape.
Beautiful landscape.
I mean, what's been filmed there? Let's
okay. Saving Private Ryan.
I wonder what part of Saving Private Ryan.
Here, and this may not surprise anybody that knows me, but
you wrote it all down.
I collect as many facts as I do photos when I travel.
I think it's a great idea. I did that when I went to Israel. I probably wrote more than anything.
Braveheart, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, Saving Private Ryan, Princess Bride, all filmed.
Princess Bride, it's one of my favorites.
In Ireland.
The Cliffs of Insanity?
I don't remember, but Cliffs of Moher. We went to the Dark Hedges where they filmed a lot of the Harry Potter or the Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah.
Harry Potter. But it's just such a beautiful, and of course you got the iconic castles. You had Kilkenny Castle. Went to Blarney Castle. Kissed the Blarney Stone. You know that famous "Gotta Kiss the Blarney Stone." You ever heard of this?
No. Maybe I have. It sounds kind of familiar.
It's just this
a Blarney Stone
weird tradition. Whenever you go to Ireland, you have to kiss the Blarney Stone.
So you and 7 million people have kissed the Blarney Stone.
I was really concerned about it, but when you go there, there's a person that because they have to lean you back. You never seen this?
No.
They lean you back. You kiss the Blarney Stone for good luck. But I noticed.
Wait. They lean you back. So is it up above your head?
You go to the top of a castle. You have to go to this top of this really arduous journey. You go to the top of this castle. And then they lean you back into this crevice, and there's all these myths about why the stone is magical or whatever. And then they lean you back to kiss it. But there's a guy there that disinfects it between every person. So that was good.
That's good.
That was good to see.
I'm like, how many people have kissed this thing over the years?
Kilkenny Castle, there's all these different castles and iconic places. St. Patrick's Cathedral, Trinity College Library. Look, literally, I'm not really a Harry Potter fan, but it looked like it was something out of Hogwarts. Yeah. Like there's this college where all of these students are walking in and about, and then there's the Book of Kells, which is like a 3rd century famous artifact in this kind of museum-like place. But then there's Trinity College Library, which looks like something out of a movie. It's surreal. You walk through, and there's these busts of all these famous like writers and poets and creators and innovators. And then it is a little library that looks like something off a movie with ladders that cascade, books that are hundreds of years old. I mean, it just,
that's cool.
It feels surreal. Speaking of writers, that was another thing that fascinated me is so many famous writers either from Ireland or lived in Ireland. So you got Samuel Beckett, Oscar Wilde, C.S. Lewis, so many. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
And that either live there or from there. Of course, you got you got the Welsh revival that happened right around there. You have, I didn't know this, but the DeLorean factory was from Ireland. Really? Did you know that the Titanic was built and sailed from Ireland?
Well, that's not something I would brag about.
Did you know that Halloween is from Ireland?
Yeah, I did. I did know about the Beggar's Night and all the traditions that come from there.
The term hillbillies is from Ireland? Yeah. Because the Irish and the Scottish left.
Are you sure that's not from West Virginia?
No, I think that they made it famous.
Oh, okay.
But the term is from there. I told you something that I thought was really interesting. They have this famous drink in Ireland called mead. It's honey wine.
Yeah.
You'll see them. A lot of people say they've seen them in festivals and Renaissance places around here. But honey wine was given to newlyweds to drink every night for the first month of marriage in the belief that it would aid fertility. So for the first moon of marriage, they would drink honey wine, thus, a.k.a. honeymoon. That's where we get the term honeymoon. It's from
Did you
Ireland.
taste it?
I did.
What's it taste like?
It tastes what you think. It's really sweet. But it's just like a sweet wine. It's like a white honeyed wine.
And they add honey to it. No?
I guess. I guess they make it from honey. Yeah, I don't know. It's strong, though. Strong.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So you had honey wine and you explored Ireland. Did you go to Scotland? Are they? I mean, you can cross right over, right?
You did not. But I was telling you, there's things even geopolitically I had no idea. Like, I felt like an idiot. It made me feel better. You said you didn't know either.
I didn't know
that Ireland is technically 2 different countries.
Yeah.
The Republic of Ireland, which is in the south, which is predominantly Catholic when you go back to the wars and all that. Then you have Northern Ireland, predominantly Protestant. And that's where you have Belfast. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that the UK consists of Britain, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. So the South Ireland, which you think of where Dublin and a big part of Ireland is not part of the UK. The UK is Britain, Scotland, Northern Ireland.
And then what's outside of that is Wales.
Yes.
I believe that's what makes Great Britain. Mm-hmm. I think it's UK plus Wales. Isn't that correct? It makes Great Britain. For some reason, that's what I have in my head.
We'll need maybe Lydia can fact check us on this. I just know that 3 countries technically make up the UK.
Yeah.
England, which Britain.
Yeah.
Scotland, Northern Ireland. But it was a fascinating place. So many cultural things. Obviously, they're known for the Irish music, which is so, festive and world-renowned.
Irish dance. I had a friend who, some of our friends, their son was a national champion Irish dancer, and so they would have their worlds. A couple times the worlds, maybe they're always there, are held in Ireland. The world competition for it. And so he's gone over and competed in the worlds over in Ireland.
The last night we were there, we went to this little like Taste of Ireland thing where they brought out dinner and they brought dancers, and it just was crazy. It was so fun.
Yeah,
it was so fun.
And you were telling me how you spent most of your time in the pub.
I did not, but I did tell you.
You were telling me the pubs are different than what, because I've been to Irish pubs a few times.
You've not.
They're like the bangers and mash, and what do they make? But we have some Irish pubs around here. There's one in Pickerington. I like going to it.
And there's one
burgers, a great deal.
No, I will say this. You'll make fun of me. I was driving into Easton Sunday night, and I was like, where do I want to go?
You went to an Irish pub,
and I saw Fido, and I'm like, I'm gonna go into Fido for a minute.
It's probably the same.
Yeah, exactly the same. Well, I'll tell you about that in a second. But first, quickly, the food. Interesting fact. The incredible food.
Yeah.
Their fish and chips are second to none besides Iceland. And Iceland's the only place I've ever had better fish and chips. They're known for seafood chowder. It's incredible. Of course, they're a drinking country. Holy cow. That is all they do is drink. I mean, just drink. Irish coffee in the morning, pints at lunch, Guinness and Irish whiskey at night.
So nothing strong.
No, I mean, well, their Irish whiskey is strong. They drink strong.
Dark beers.
Guinness.
That's all.
Yes.
That's what you always think of when you think of Irish.
But this is interesting. They had some sort of illness outbreak in the 50s with meat, and so it is to this day illegal to prepare burgers that are not well done. Isn't that crazy?
Really?
I was very disappointed about that.
They have to be well done?
They have to be well done.
No medium.
No medium. You cannot legally prepare a burger in Ireland.
Really?
Unless it's well done. Also, this is probably a good thing. Locally in the restaurants, they have to legally be able to tell customers where the source of all their food is from. So, cheese, this is from the dairy farm of blah, blah, blah. This is from this. This produce is from here. They have to legally be able to tell. Which is really...
have to be able to, or they have to tell you?
Have to be able to tell you.
They have to be able to.
So they don't necessarily have to put it on the menu, but if somebody asked, they would have to have the knowledge to tell you this is where your food is from.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
Could you imagine if we did that walking into a McDonald's?
Oh, God.
Okay, I'd like to know where this quarter pounder's from.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
Dad, I don't even think it's possible.
No, not possible.
So you were telling me, you were telling me that you went on a pub tour, that you spent... all day and night going from pub to pub to pub.
Yeah.
No, you told me you did. You said you went on this tour and you went to the pubs and you said they're not like you would imagine a pub here. We think of a pub as a bar.
Yes.
Here. And they're depressing.
Yes. But before I ever went on the pub tour, one of the last nights there, I convinced my dad, we had a night where we didn't have an excursion kind of tour picked out. And there was this tour called the pub tour. And early in the trip, when, I'm taking all these notes, learning about the culture of Ireland, one of the things they said that kind of seems like, well, duh, is they said one of the things Ireland is known for, one of the many things it's known for, is spreading pub culture all over the world. And that's interesting. I never really thought about it like that. Obviously, in London and all over, now every country in the world, for the most part, not all, but most have some sort of bar scene.
Does pub culture mean bars? Would bars come from that too?
I suppose, but I don't know, because you have Western saloons.
Yeah.
But in Ireland, of course, there's so much fascinating history when you go back to even the Vikings and who all came over before. But for making the whole idea of coming together and enjoying community and a drink, they spread that whole culture around the world. So for me, I always thought pub synonymous with bar. You hear about a pub in America, you're like, oh, it's probably like a bar, but maybe it's Irish themed and they have Guinness posters on the wall. And I learned quickly that is not the case. So they kept building up this thing. So one of the nights we were in Dublin, I was like, well, I'm just gonna walk, because our hotel is in the city center of Dublin, and there is a really famous pub nearby that is known as one of the most famous pubs in the world. And so sure enough, I went around 9 o'clock. You couldn't even get in. Which a lot of the pubs don't even open
9 o'clock in the morning?
9 o'clock at night.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So I'm like, I want to walk through these pubs. And so anyways, I did. And I was telling you, words can't do justice to the atmosphere of an Irish pub. it is not to say that it's different than an American bar would be an understatement of the solar system. It is an atmosphere. I don't use the word a lot, but I think I told you it is one of absolute pure merriment. It is the most festive, joyful, loud, friendly, fun atmosphere maybe that I have ever been in my entire life. I think I told you one of the things that I immediately thought of in contrast when I thought of American bars. This is gonna be way over stereotype because
some people there's good hang up places.
There's great places to hang all over the country when you think of bars or even clubs in a healthy, I don't know. Anyways, but when you think of a lot of times, let me just say this, a lot of times in America when you think of like a really pulsing, energetic, crowded bar, a lot of times there is, at least after being in Ireland, to me, there is a deeper sense of, besides all the good things, maybe a deeper sense of, I don't know if the right word is pride, maybe even a little bit of haughtiness from time to time. Of you kind of think of, especially maybe more when you think of a club, you think of like guys walking in, groups of guys sizing each other up and kind of like judging each other. You think of people kind of acting tough or acting cool. You almost think of when you get to the darker hours of the morning, like maybe violence can spread or guys preying on girls or whatever. And again, that is a very bad stereotype. That doesn't describe every bar in the country. And I'm not saying none of that would ever happen in Ireland because human beings are human beings. But the atmosphere in an Irish pub was void of any of that silliness. The idea of somebody walking in strutting or trying to act cool in an Irish pub would have been laughed at. Like, I'm telling you, I'll walk through there. You know those pictures you see in like movies, those scenes of like guys, their arms around each other, and they're just singing and holding their like
mugs up,
and it doesn't seem real. Every Irish pub was like that times 10.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, groups of girls, they're coming after work, arms around each other, standing, singing at the top of their lungs, happy. Triumphant.
Why was everybody so happy?
I don't know. It's just later on. This is before, but honestly, like I'm sure people eventually have too much.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it was I bumped into a couple guys accidentally, and it was just like, oh, lad, I'm so sorry. How's your night going? How are you? What's your name? Like, it was the friendliest. It was void completely of pretense or arrogance or trying to act cool. People were literally there for community, and it was festive. It was cheerful. It was joyful. I don't know. It was the craziest thing I've ever experienced. And then later on, sure enough, our tour guide was talking. He said, yes, he said, I will never walk into a place in America that calls themselves a pub, because it's not. He said, it takes generations to build this kind of atmosphere.
I bet it does.
And sure enough, the tour, so to speak, I don't even know if they called it a tour, but really one of the last nights we were there, my dad didn't want to go because, he didn't like to ever have anything to, just that whole scene. But he said, I was like, let's just try it. And they ended up taking us not even to one of the big city ones. They ended up taking us to the country, to this a small 300-year-old pub.
Right.
And we picked up a guy along the way that they had relationship with, that played the guitar, played old Irish songs, told us stories. He brought in one of his old bartenders and really just sang songs and talked. And we sat in this place and soaked in the history and the atmosphere and the feel of just Ireland. And it was just epic. It ended up being one of my dad's favorite parts of the entire trip. And
the pub. That's cool.
And weird as I am, I started thinking, I was like, man, if an Irish pub has this level of joy and expectation and community, what should a church feel like?
Yep.
What should a church feel like?
It should feel like a pub.
Church should feel like an Irish pub.
Our name, Pub Church. Church at the pub. Speaking of church, I want to shift gears just a moment, just because I wanted to. You had mentioned something, but I wanted to make sure we had some time to talk about it. And you had mentioned one of the things that fascinated you was learning about the violence that has happened. I want to say almost at least the perspective of, you would say, talking to people in the name of the church.
Yes. So,
and that's been a long-going feud. I even told you, I was like, oh, orange and green. I mean, there's been a long-going feud between the Catholics and the Protestants.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about hundreds of years, and they've had seasons that have been very bloody.
Yeah.
I mean, and very violent.
Yes.
And so you got to at least hear a little bit of history, and you got to hear something through the perspective of like one of your drivers or something.
Yeah.
And
So when we spent, we went up through Galway, which is a fascinating town.
Yeah.
You could feel Ed Sheeran in your bones on every street. But we ended up crossing over into Northern Ireland and went to Belfast. And Belfast is just a fascinating city. And again, historically, Southern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, is Catholic, and the North, and which is now called Northern Ireland, is Protestant. And there's just been, unbeknownst to me, a long, contentious, bloody history there.
Yeah. And
in Northern Ireland specifically, we don't have time for the history lesson now, but I just learned all kind of things about the IRA.
Yep, IRA.
It's a place historically of terrorism.
Yep.
And we saw, even as we were driving into the city, where they used to have the snipers positioned. And they used to make it so hard to even cross over into Northern Ireland, and would persuade people not to come because of the segregation, because of the violence, because of the hatred. Things got so bad they had to call England in to help in some of the history of violence. And it's a long story. It's worth Googling or YouTubing later. But even back into the 90s, violence, there were these continuous resurgences of violence in Northern Ireland. And in Northern, just kind of as a sidebar, they love us. They love the U.S. Bill Clinton's the hero, because Bill Clinton actually ended up coming into the middle of this and saying something has to change.
Yeah.
So there's U.S. flags everywhere in Northern Ireland. And just a couple other interesting sidebars is, so me and my dad ended up deciding to last minute do this world famous thing called the Black Taxi Tour, which is these people that grew up in Belfast in the middle of this violence, that saw it with their own eyes. There's these kind of old-fashioned taxis that are elongated with like 7 or 8 seats that face each other. And you can book a Black Taxi Tour, and these drivers will drive you around town and talk to you. And they'll stop at these places at night, and the historical places where maybe something tragic happened, and they'll just talk you through it. And get you to ask questions. And it was just mind-blowing. I mean, they stopped us at a place where this lady, really, a lot of Northern Ireland was inspired. You don't realize the reach of America, but Northern Ireland was inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. And when he was fighting through the civil rights and trying to desegregate, that gave hope and a voice to these people in Northern Ireland that, hey, we need to. And so it was off of his speech, I Have a Dream, that a lot of change started taking place in Northern Ireland. And honestly, they say the women won the war. They balk against this whole thing of like, well, people went, the famous wars over there. They're like, no, the women trained people to think different. Wow. The women would literally go out in the street when the IRA is coming down and form barricades and say, you're not going to stop us. And he took us this one spot where this one woman in particular was leading this whole movement against the IRA and against the terrorists. And when she finally got sick and had a surgery, which went successful, people found out she was in the hospital, walked down the hospital and just shot her. I mean, there's and he's talking us through it, but all of it, the tragic thing, maybe the most tragic thing of all of this terrorism, because I think they showed us a street that they said was one of the most bombed streets in the history of the world. I mean, bombing
is what was common. I remember
bombings were so common in terrorism, but it shouldn't be when you think about the Crusades. But the most infuriating, bewildering thing was all of this violence was because of Protestants against Catholics.
Yeah.
Even today in Belfast, there is a high suicide rate among young men. There are still, to this day, 16-foot walls in the inside of the city. There are still curfews. And all of it going back, this bloody violence between Protestants and Catholics. The Catholics are against Protestants. Protestants are against Catholics. And over again, the taxi driver just kept saying, yeah, we try to make progress, but the church. And he just kept saying the church. And he just started getting at me. And finally, at the end of it, me and him had kind of just a private moment. I just started asking him questions and trying to plant seeds of, without sounding arrogant, hey, I think this whole part of Europe for several hundred years has completely misunderstood what the church even means. And I know that sounds arrogant for me, white American coming over there and saying that, but I think I have room to say that because I don't get to decide what the church means. And America doesn't get to decide what the church means. And Ireland doesn't get to decide what the church means. And Protestants don't get to decide what the church means. And Catholics don't get to decide what the church means. Only the one who started the church gets to decide what the church means. Jesus started the church. Jesus is the one that established and said, this is my body that is going to continue to carry on the acts that I did on this earth. The book of Acts, where the church started, is literally called not the Acts of the Apostles, but the Acts of Jesus Christ through the Apostles, because it was the continuation of what he did. And what did he do? He refused to politicize. He refused to impose through legal power or government or kingdom. He refused to hate. All he did was love, lay his life down, serve, and change the world through a revolution of love. And I basically tried to find a moment to tell this taxi driver, I don't care how ornate or religious the building looks or how fancy or religious the language. Anybody that does the opposite of what Jesus says, it's not a church.
Yeah.
It's an institution. It's a political movement doing evil in the name of God. But just because the name of God is used doesn't mean it's of God. And it just really fired me up. We were beginning this series at our church called This Is Us.
Yeah.
And I did a rally Sunday, and I just read Isaiah 61. This is why Jesus came. He says, I've come, I've been anointed to preach good news. Yeah. So if your movement or your life isn't preaching good news, you may be a lot of things, but you're not the church.
Right.
Bring good news to release those who are oppressed, not to oppress.
Yeah.
To free people from darkness, to set people free, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim that. So anyways, I'm on a tangent now. It fired me up.
Yeah.
Because I think there's been a lot of things done in the name of the church. And I don't care if there's 1 million people part of an organized thing called the Catholic Church or the Protestant Church. The church isn't a building. You preached during the ensemble series about how kirches and German buildings, how church didn't even become associated with the building until the 3rd century. But the church, the ecclesia, is a group of called out ones on mission to be the love of Jesus in the world. And anyways, that's my tangent.
I thought it's interesting that the perspective that people have of the church.
Yeah.
And wherever you go, you're always going to run into people that are going to have a perspective of the church. And it's just sad that there's so many. The church is not perfect. The church is never going to be perfect because it's full of imperfect people. But it's just sad sometimes it's sad kind of the commentary that people have of Jesus. And because of what has been in the name of organized religion, have done things that I feel like vehemently oppose everything Jesus stood for.
Yeah.
And even, we see it, and we've talked about it before, but even just this mixing of politics and religion.
Yeah.
So that's what's fascinating. Like I know a little bit about the war that's happened there for a long time, and there has always been this Protestant and Catholic, Northern and Southern, and it's almost been like a civil war that has had religion tied to it. But it's none of that has been reflective of who Jesus is or what the church is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like it seems like culturally, and maybe every so often, maybe every generations or whatever, that sometimes it feels like the church needs a rebrand. Not because the church needs to change and what it's doing, but its perspective, or maybe those who claim. And it's a challenging season, because I think there are a lot of things that we try to do to impact the communities, to do good, to do things, to represent His love. But we also have to understand that the church is is such a unique thing, as anybody can affiliate with the church.
Yeah.
And there's so many dispersions of what that looks like, and anybody can affiliate. And so I think, sadly enough, and I'm constantly trying to communicate go against this idea of I go to church versus I am the church.
Yes. And
yet there are people who go to church and they tell it, I go to church here, but then they live nothing like Jesus. Yeah. And I'm not perfect, and I don't live like Jesus all the time in that, but are not striving. Yeah. Let me just say that, to live like Jesus.
Yeah, it's one thing it's one thing to be imperfect. It's another thing to put a bad taste in someone's mouth for who Jesus is.
Yes.
I think I told you it was such an interesting trip the last couple of weeks, and I told you one of the most interesting thing was I probably had some of the most stimulating, invigorating faith conversations that I've had.
What are you doing?
My jacket was falling. I
Oh.
thought I heard something. Most like invigorating, like faith conversations, talking to people about Jesus.
Yeah.
Than I've had just in normal everyday life, and it's just in Vegas, and this young Uber driver asking me questions about Jesus, and then the last night, the reason I bring this up, me and my dad ended up in a conversation with this older couple that fourth generation Jewish, but I think people are really turned off by the bad representation of church, but really actually hungry for spiritual reality.
Yeah.
And it fascinated me how many people, conversations I didn't try to get into, but the people were asking questions, and this lady just kept asking questions about Jesus. And bring this up because one of the questions she asked is, well, then why didn't she have the Jews follow him? And I basically just said, I'll edit out my real answer, but I so to speak, I said, well, everything that you probably are turned off by in America is what the disciples wanted Jesus to do. They wanted Jesus to get in bed with politics.
Yeah.
And he refused.
Yeah.
They kept saying, will you restore the kingdom at this time? Will you help us overthrow Rome? Will you?
Yeah.
Well, they wanted him to use his spiritual power to bring political power to get influence and set the record straight and impose what they wanted.
Yeah.
And help leverage their lives.
Yeah.
And he refused. And I think one of the many bad misrepresentations in the church in the West, there's many. There's hypocrisy. There's moral failings of leaders. There's the imperfections of all of us. I love G.K. Chesterton, my favorite philosopher. This one time, this famous newspaper editor in London said, "What's wrong with the world?" And G.K. Chesterton wrote back and said, "Dear sir, I am what's wrong with the world.
Yeah.
Sincerely, GK." And I love that.
Yeah.
The humility and honesty.
Yeah.
Well, if Russ Moore wants to start with the things that's wrong with the world, I need to start with Russ Moore.
Yeah, I agree. Let's start with Russ Moore.
I'm what's wrong with the world. But I definitely think one of them is the church getting in bed with politics and thinking that's the way.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean our faith and our moral conscience shouldn't inform.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there shouldn't be people of faith in politics.
Right.
At all, but it does mean we should not conflate the two. When that happens, I think it's toxic.
Yeah.
And I told you it's interesting. Back in the last couple of years, there's this campaign called "He Gets Us" that has started. It's $100 million campaign aimed at representing Jesus, and they're doing ads and billboards, and they actually did one of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
This whole thing said trying to, especially towards millennials and Gen Z, to say, hey, you've had this impression shoved down your throat of who God is, but that's not Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus loves us. He gets us. And I've not looked a ton into it. I don't know, how faithful it is to Scripture. It sounds good, but really the best rebrand is rebranded lives that from the inside out are authentic and genuine. And what was it Paul said? That an aroma that actually smells like Jesus.
Yeah.
A spirit that actually feels like Jesus. A life that's not perfect but is authentic and is enamored and wrapped up in God until God begins to ooze out of us and people say, what is it that's different about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the church will always have different expressions of it, and people have different experiences with the church. And what I always hope, and I know we don't always get it right, and there's people that leave and get mad because either they don't get what they want or whatever. I hope it's never because of how we treated them, but I hope that we, at least here in our context, can be about restoring or rebranding church for people.
Yeah.
And it's not even about church. The sad reality is the church exists to be a witness of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so what's sad is when even people say the church, which I guess I'm glad if somebody's going to take the fall for all this, it would be an entity that people blame called the church rather than Jesus himself. But I think the whole idea is that the church is really just supposed to be the reflection of Jesus on earth. And the sad reality is that whenever the church is brought into, whether it's for political purpose or it's brought into and just the ills of humanity that we've seen, the black eyes of the church and the things. I'm grateful that over 2,000 years of history, the church is still shining.
Yeah.
Even though there are people that have this perspective. And so one of the cool things that you were telling me is that on this trip, you got to have some individual encounters with people. They're asking questions about Jesus, but I think at the same time, they will hopefully have a different perspective of the church because of an encounter with someone who's part of the church. And I hope people have that with us. I hope that people that have been disenfranchised by the church in the past, my hope is that they would encounter a church that tries to live like Jesus and love like Jesus and serve like Jesus and give like Jesus, that when they encounter that, they would say, okay, now that's something that I can appreciate. That's something I love. And so I think does the church need a rebrand? Well, not because of Jesus, but because of maybe what we've done in the culture. But I think the way we rebrand church, as you said, I think we have to rebrand ourselves.
Yeah.
I think everywhere I go, I'm an extension of the church.
Yeah. It's just and man, I'm the first that's guilty. Yeah. It's so easy to not that you need to quote unquote be on 24/7, but I just think more people watch us than we realize. And I think I don't know. I want more and more to be someone who's so full of life that wherever I go, people can see and taste that life. I mean, I gritty example. Last night I'm walking into Lifetime Gym, and there's times I'm just like, it's the end of the day. I'm tired. I'm walking in.
You're crabby.
Someone's checking me in. I'm always polite, but at times I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, and I'm just
not really engaging.
Not really engaged. And there's this sweet, cute little girl at the front, and she's always so peppy. And at times I'm like, I need to engage more. I'm just so tired. I'm walking in. And then last night I'm wearing Scary Face shirt. And she goes, oh, hey, she goes, is your pastor, he wrote that book? And I was like, yeah, have you read it? She goes, I haven't read it, but he preached in my church 2 weeks ago. And man, it was so great. And we all loved him so much. And I'm just like, immediately I'm like, oh, I'm happy, cheerful, and I'm like, yeah,
a great reminder, that everywhere go. I hate to the thought of want on, because I don't want to be fake.
Right.
I want it to be me all the time, but we don't always have the best mood. We don't have that.
Right.
But I do want
awareness.
Awareness that every interaction that I have, I am representing more than me.
Right.
I always tell it to people when they come here and they want to be a part of them, like, you represent Jesus.
Yeah.
You represent this church.
Right.
Because people know, and you post or you do this, they know who you are, they know where you go.
Right.
And so it's not, I just wish we could get this, I wish we could get this message out. The church is not about religion, it's not about the rules, it's not about all these things, but it's literally a group of people who hopefully try to live like Jesus.
Yeah.
And we might mess up, but we should own it when we mess up, and we should try to correct it, and we want to try to live like Jesus and represent Jesus. And that should be all it really is a community trying to do that and help people, come to find that same hope that we found. And it's just sad when I think about church in America in the last 20 years, 30 years, and I can just think of incident after incident after incident. We are failed and flawed, but I was going to say, one of the things that is crazy is that 2,000 years is still here. And we're still going to try to do good. And so I love the fact that you spoke up, that you said, I know that you think that's the church, but from my perspective, that's not the church, and that never has been the church.
Yeah.
And religion is not the church. Politics is not the church. Politics and religion is not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is not the answer.
No.
I believe what the answer is that the world needs more than anything else to see is they need to see Jesus through us.
Yeah. A genuine move of Jesus people filled with love, and I'm just going to say it, filled with power.
Yeah.
That first group of ragtag followers of Jesus turned the entire world upside down.
Yeah.
Not only did they not have any political power, but they were politically hunted.
Yeah.
But through radical generosity, and I'm just going to say it, I know this may sound weird, but through supernatural power, they had something of substance with God, and they were on a radical, urgent mission.
Yeah.
To turn the world upside down with love.
Yeah.
And they did it.
They did.
And it can happen again. And
Rome doesn't exist anymore.
No.
All these nations come and nations go.
Yeah.
Empires come, empires go. America's only been around for a few hundred years.
Yeah.
I mean,
not even as long as the Irish pub I was in.
That's true. And so I think it's a great reminder. And so I don't think, it's cool that people are trying to rebrand the perspective that we have of Jesus. But one thing I find is that I rarely find people who have an issue with Jesus. Like you can't read anything. that he said or done. They have an issue with what the church has created out of this. And so, it's a great reminder for me and for you. It's like, we are the church. Yeah. So we can't talk about the church out there. That's what hurts so much. That's when you're like, because it's being blamed on the church. And as much as I want to disconnect with it we are part of the church, the global church. Yeah. And so that's sad reality. Yeah. But also I think I'm hopeful, even the series that we're in right now, as we're talking about all those things. What does it look like to not just go to church? And I would just encourage you, challenge you. Maybe you don't go to church. Maybe you should find a church. If you say, I went to church, I don't like it anymore. The hypocrites of that. Okay, you're going to find those in all of them. But find a church that really does believe that trying to live like Jesus, look like Jesus, serve like Jesus, give like Jesus is the ideal and is what we're striving for. Find a place like that. Yeah. And invest yourself in serving and giving and loving and doing outreach. And we got so many cool things planned this Christmas season that I'm excited just even to talk about with our church. All the different ministries and things that we're going to impact, the teenage foster care things that we're going to be doing for prison ministry. We got some incredible things happening in prisons around here, a forgotten group of people that there are people in our church and others that are passionate about just taking hope to and seeing amazing things happen with their families, just incredible stuff. The food pantry, driven ministry. I mean, I'm going to be talking about them all. And these are why we give. This is why we give. And so we want to make a difference in this world. And so if the church needs a rebrand, it's never going to happen as an organization or a denomination. It's going to happen when people encounter you and me. When they encounter us, that is the brand that they see of Jesus or the church. And so I'm glad you had a cool trip. But I want to make sure that we represent Jesus well. So
absolutely.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. And I'm jealous. I wish I could go to Ireland.
Add Ireland to your bucket list.
Okay. I'm going to have to put Ireland on the bucket. I probably wouldn't put it on my list if we went through, remember all the vacation places that we wanted to go.
I wouldn't have either.
I wouldn't have put it on my bucket list, but you're kind of making me want to. And I love the countryside stuff more than the city. So I need to see pictures. Did you even post stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't on social media, so I didn't really look, but I need to see pictures. And so make sure you travel, make sure you represent Jesus wherever you go. And so if you're tuning into this, thank you for joining us. We hope you're getting ready for a Christmas season. We'll probably talk about some Christmas stuff in weeks to come, talk about the holidays, talk about what you're doing for Christmas. But I would encourage you, if you're not in a church, get connected to a church. If you're in the Central Ohio area, we'd love to have you at X Church. That's our heartbeat and our mission is we want to represent Jesus. And I hope if you are a follower of Jesus, live your life in such a way that you represent Jesus. So remember when you go to the gym, make sure you put a smile on your face, even if you don't feel like it. Be chipper and represent Jesus wherever you go. So thank you for joining with us, and you can share, and you can, what are all the things you're going to email us?
Email us and
what else did I do? podcast@thex.church. I should at least say the email address if you're new.
If you've never taken time to rate and review us,
we love it. Yeah,
it would help the world.
Yeah, it's easy. All you have to do is click 5 stars and say these guys are the greatest that I've ever heard. And no, I'm just kidding. Anyways, thanks for joining us. Until next week, have a great one.